Mask of a Diva, a Stan Kraychik mystery, Book 4, 1994. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York. Author, Eric Aust. For all the divas, operatic and otherwise. Chapter 19. I had just hung up the receiver when Branco came out from the auditorium. He saw me standing at the public telephones and waved me over. I had to keep myself from running to him. "Nicole sends her regards," I said. "I told her about your parents." Branco acknowledged my message with a nod and a slight smile. "I'm just about done here," he said. "Are you hanging around to work?" "The wig room is officially closed," I replied. "I was heading back to the estate myself. Any chance I might bum a ride?" Branco considered a moment. "Probably." "I mean with you," I said. "In your car." "I know," he said. "I'm sure there's room." God forbid the guy should just say yes. I guess I should have been satisfied that all the words he danced around with came out meaning the same thing. I wanted to ride back with Branco so I'd have a chance to compare notes with him. Honest, that was the real reason. On the ride up the winding road to Daphne's house, I again studied the cop's powerful hands. They embraced the wooden steering wheel with an almost haughty confidence. The long, heavy fingers formed sharp angles as they grasped the arc of burnished walnut. The huge thumbs loosely connected to the palms, like those of the best concert pianists, were strong sculptures of curves and planes. The nails were large and pink, with perfectly trimmed white tips, shining against the olive skin. But now Branco's big, beautiful paws disturbed me too, for I wondered how many women he had struck with them. His voice broke the spell. "How's your partner doing?" "Rafik is in Paris, preparing his parents to meet me." Branco chuckled quietly. "Sounds like every other couple in the world." "Except that," Branco interrupted. "You've got nothing to worry about, Stan. His folks are going to like you just fine." He turned his face toward me. "Look at me," he said with unlikely surrender. "You even won me over. I mean, in a manner of speaking." "Aberration of logic?" screamed my left brain. "A cop is flirting with a hairdresser?" I focused on his big manly hands, the ones that had beaten women. That way I could despise him just enough to maintain a safe psychic distance between us. I told Branco that Carolyn Boetz had mentioned a security report that recorded all the comings and goings around the performance center based on electronic keys. Branco said he knew about the report and already consulted it while questioning the people in the opera house. "But it doesn't record the stage door," he said. "There's a security guard there 24 hours. "Supposedly," I said. Branco had a copy of the report with him in the car. I asked him if I could see it. He said sure, it was in the back seat. I fished it out from a pile of papers that was fast overtaking the Alpha's tiny back seat. The report would require some decoding, so I refolded it and placed it on my lap for later on. Branco said, "You can't keep that." "I know," I said. "I'll give it back." "Today," he said. "Sure, boss." Branco smiled. Then I said, "Did you talk to April Kilkis or her Wong Young Cho?" "You mean the soprano and the baritone?" "Yeah," I said, still somewhat bewildered that Branco knew anything about opera and singers. "What about them?" he said. "They're the only two people I didn't get a chance to bother today," Branco smirked. "It sounds to me like you've already been mucking around pretty deep in this thing." I hesitated. "I guess you could say that." Stanley said, "What if I told you this time that I'm considering using your help, that I actually want it?" "I'd wondered what you have up your sleeve, Lieutenant." "What if I make you a deputy?" "That would really complicate it." "It's just common sense," said Branco. "In the past, you've muddled, and I've resisted, but you've always ended up helping the case, so why not just skip the first two steps and register you as a civilian deputy?" "Can you do that?" "I'm the boss, like you said." "Do I get a shiny badge?" Another smirk from the cop. "A badge is something else." We had just climbed the final ascent to Daphne's place, where the road leveled off, though the afternoon sun was bright and the sky clear. Though the afternoon sun was bright and the sky clear, the ocean far below us was choppy and dusted with whitecaps. We'd be at the estate in a few minutes. I told Branco I was surprised that he knew about opera. "Nothing wrong with that, is there?" said the cop. Then, to my surprise, Branco divulged another bit of his personal life to me. His mother had been a singer. She had often taken him as a boy to New York to the opera, and he had heard Marcella Ostinata sing many times. I told him I thought he seemed to recognize her that morning. Branco replied, "You've got a good eye." And I reasoned that's why Marcella's death had affected Branco so strongly, because of the association to his recently dead mother. I asked him, "Do you remember how she sounded?" He nodded. Marcella was young then and extremely dramatic for her. Opera was more visual than musical. Her voice was never secure and never really what you'd call beautiful, but her personality was strong enough so that it worked. Then he recalled that there was some scandal about Marcella, that she had stopped singing smack in the middle of the season. But the next year she was back again in her usual form. Branco said, "My mother always spoke obscurely about the brief pause in Marcella's career, but I think she really knew what had happened. I have a hunch she was too ashamed to tell me." "It must have been sex-related," I said. "Hell, from my skewed view of the world, everything was sex-related." "Maybe Marcella had a baby out of wedlock," I said. Branco shrugged. "I never found out, but I still go to New York for opera. There's almost nothing in Boston now." Then he made an ironic little laugh and said, "I sure hope there's not a potential conflict of interest here. I bought a subscription for the festival." "This one in Abigail?" "Yep," said the cop. "I want to encourage opera in Boston. I don't talk about it at the station, though. Why give them any ammunition?" As he turned the Alpha onto Daphne's curved driveway, I wondered, ammunition against what? The Abigail police had gone home, but the Boston police cruisers were still parked in front of the house. According to Parker, the local force had left the premises hours ago. Madama's body had been taken back to Boston, since that's where the investigation was based and things had generally quieted down. Daphne came into the foyer looking bright and refreshed, a marked reversal to the horrors of the morning. She came to me with open arms. "I'm so glad you're back. I didn't realize how much I would miss the comfort of someone young and friendly around here with me." She embraced me tenderly. Then she said to Branco, "The same goes for you, Lieutenant. It's a relief to have you here again." However, rather than greet Branco with a big hug, Daphne grasped his upper arm and gave it a reassuring squeeze. It was something I'd always wanted to do, but the older woman could get away with it, while I groped like that would probably have landed me a slap. "I bet you're both famished," she said. "Parker is standing by to serve lunch in the garden room." "Thanks," said Branco, "but I'll want to question everyone first. Where have my crew set up?" Daphne said, "They're all in the library." She looked a bit crestfallen. "Don't you want lunch?" Branco's eyes betrayed his cool manner. He wavered for a moment, then said to Daphne, "Would it be any trouble to get some sandwiches and coffee in the library?" Daphne beamed at him. "Consider it done. And Lieutenant, you and your crew are welcome to stay at the Performance Center in town for as long as you need." She was already enthralled with the cop. Branco considered her offer and then said, "That would help us out a lot." Daphne continued, "There's even room for one more here at that big house if you'd like to stay with us. It's very comfortable." "I'm sure it is," said Branco. He looked at me. "Where are you sleeping?" Daphne and I exchanged glances. "In the cottage," I said. Branco turned back to Daphne. "It's probably better if I stay in town with my crew." I guess my residency in the cottage was still too close to the big house for Branco's comfort. But he did invite me into the library with him. His crew from Boston was waiting in there. A male sergeant and a female officer. They were arranging the statements they'd taken while Branco was at the opera house. Branco introduced me to them, and I was pleasantly surprised when they greeted me hospitably. I was only a civilian, after all, even though I knew Branco from previous cases. Perhaps my dubious reputation with the Boston Police Department was beginning to serve me well. Parker wheeled in a cart, bearing a platter of sandwiches, a thermal decanter of coffee, and a big porcelain cookie jar in the shape of a clown. Branco laughed out loud when he saw it. That was a rare moment when the dark, brooding cop laughed like that, and genuine amusement in spite of himself. It made me almost want to rescue him and take care of him until he could do it more often. Loosen up and laugh at more things, even the most serious ones, but his laugh had also opened a tiny loop in the stranglehold of his self-control, and Branco was suddenly identifying the cookie jar as a caricature of Enrico Caruso, costumed for his famous role as Canillo, the clown in I Pagliacci. Branco's two crew members looked at him curiously, and he caught himself. "My uncle had one just like it," he said quickly, and after that he was all business. Before the cops had lunch, Branco took Parker's statement. It was a simple session with few surprises. Daphne's butler had heard and seen nothing unusual between the time he locked up the house the night before until the shocking moment that morning when Madame Ostadata's maid had discovered her lady's mutilated body on the bed. Branco said, "You're certain that every window and door was locked then?" "Yes, sir," replied Parker. "My standard routine is to secure every window and door. It takes me a good half hour." "What about the windows and doors in the guest quarters?" Parker's face showed a minuscule flinch. "I'm afraid you caught me there, Lieutenant. I did not check any of the guest rooms, nor do I ever check Miss Davenport's quarters." "That's all right," said Branco. "I wasn't trying to trip you up. I just wanted to make sure." When I saw a small, self-satisfied gleam in the cop's bright, gray-blue eyes. That brief interrogation finished, Branco told Parker to gather everyone else in the household in some convenient place close to the library, so that he could call them in one by one for questioning. Before dismissing Parker, Branco snapped his fingers at me. "Stan, what's your young friend's name?" "Who?" "The one hanging around my car this morning, your latest conquest," he added smugly. Parker intervened. "That would be Maurizio, sir." "Jeez, even the butler knew about me." "Good," said Branco. "Be sure to get him in with the others." Parker nodded and set off on his mission. Meanwhile, the three cops and I had lunch, and I got to watch Branco's big square jaw work its way through 2 slabs of thick-cut dark bread laid heavy with nearly raw meat. I took a dainty bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich on crustless white bread, then settled down to study the security report, the one that showed everyone's comings and goings from the Performance Center residences the previous night. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.